Hi fantasy managers, welcome to FPL Team Talks. In this video, I'm going to go through a host of players that I'm looking at for game week 8. I'm going to take a look at their underlying stats, look at their fixtures and see whether I would want to bring them in now, short term or medium term. So if you enjoy these sort of videos, give it a like. Don't forget to subscribe. And in the meantime, let's jump into it. Some of these players that I'm going to look at fall into the category of I want to bring in right now, and some of those are I'm looking at for the medium to long term. And if you don't have anything more pressing, and that feels like a bit of a luxury with there's so many flags about in European games, then they are certainly players you could target. A lot of these will also evolve around your wildcard strategy. If you press the button already, some of these players might be interesting for you to put in your wildcard now. If you're holding on to it and like me, targeting game week 10, so some of these players may be of interest to you before you press that button to wildcard as a sort of short-term pump. One player I will focus on before we go any further is Sven Botman, because he will affect a lot of people's transfer plans for this week. As we know, at the weekend he was flagged, kind of expected that he would see it through. He went through a fitness test, obviously he was ruled out. It was a bit more serious than they first thought. The actual quote, just to remind you, was that Sven has a knee problem. That's serious enough to keep him out until the international break. We hope after that he'll be close to being fit. Now, for me, I don't own Sven Botman. I was definitely interested in him, but in the end, the money and the price rises squeezed me out, and I went for Dan Burn, and that's worked out great for me. I would much rather have gone Trippier because he's really hauled in those last two games. However, I think if you have Sven Botman now, I think if you got other issues, I think you literally just hold him, except he's going to miss that West Ham away game, which is not an easy fixture anyway, and then hope for more news near the time after the international break when we may know if he's going to be fit for Palace and Wolves, which are two fixtures I would want to target. Palace at home looks like a good fixture. Wolves away. Wolves, despite their great result of the weekend, just do not have a very good underlying stats. One of the expected lowest scoring teams in the league, and also for points. The weekend, I think they were 2-1 up at one point, and he had one shot on goal. So I don't mind targeting that Wolves game away from home. I think if you do have a transfer that you've got nothing else to do, possibly you could bring him up. I think Shaw looks fine. If you've got the money, go up to Trippier, absolutely. Or if money's tight, just go down to Dan Burn, who looks pretty nailed to me. So maybe it's also triggered a few people to wildcard. That's absolutely fine. Some of these players may have interest you. Like me, if you're looking to wildcard in 10, there's a couple of players that I've definitely got my eye on for this week. And top of my list has got to be Son Heung-min. 9.3, he keeps going up in price, but he's had a great season. It really seems to have ignited in the last few weeks. He may have blanked against Sheffield United after that hat-trick against Burnley, and that sort of upset a few people. But since then, 2 goals against Arsenal, another one at the weekend. So he's got Luton away and Fulham at home. Two sides I absolutely want to target. That fits perfectly for me. And one of the reasons why I don't want a wild card in 10 is I can bring Son in for this game now. His underlying stats look great. Playing through the middle, possibly on pens. What's not to like? He has absolutely got to come in for me. The other one, if I didn't have the money for it, would be James Maddison at 7.9. Nothing wrong with him. I don't think he's got quite the goal threat that Son has got. His XGI is also slightly lower, but he is all on set pieces, and he's absolutely nailed as well. So 7.9, he looks a cheaper option. But those two Tottenham players, I'm really interested in. Would I take a hit to bring one of them in and have both? I'm not sure yet. I'm not sure. It depends who my midfielders I'll be taking out is. One of them could be Saka. I expect him, because he's now back in training, to be fit for the Man City game. I'm not expecting a huge amount of returns in that game. I could bring out Odegaard, so I could be swapping 2 Arsenal players for 2 Tottenham players, but it would cost me 4 points. Will Son and Maddison score 4 more points at least than Odegaard and Saka will be my question. Yeah, quite possibly, but I could lose 4 points because there's nothing to say Saka and Odegaard couldn't return in that Man City game either. So I'm not sure whether it's worth taking a hit. If you've got players that aren't playing, that you've got issues with, then yeah, possibly worth bringing in. It's a great couple of fixtures. But for me, when I'm wildcarding in 10, taking a hit for 2 players, I've only got 2 weeks to get that money back. So we'll have to consider. I'm considering it. There's definitely one Tottenham player that I'm bringing in this week, and that will be Son, maybe Maddison. The other players that I'm looking at as well, and on a wild card for game week 10, I'll be bringing these in. For a wild card as well now, quite possibly, I don't think I'll bring all of them in, but Diaby's underlying stats look really good. 7 games, he's got 6 returns. It's overachieving compared to his XGI. Wolves away, talked about how Wolves are not particularly free scoring, but they don't concede a lot of goals either, so I'm not sure I'll be targeting that Wolves game. And then West Ham's not easy either. Then you've got Luton Forest, those fixtures really turn in game week 10. So absolutely, Diaby will be part of my wild card. On top of that, I think I've also got to go for Matty Cash. He looks nailed in that Villa defence. Digne is definitely an option. He's a bit cheaper, but there's just a threat of Moreno coming back and minutes being taken away off Digne. He wasn't the first choice last year, and Moreno is stepping up his rehabilitation, I know. So I think Matty Cash is just a safer option. If you don't have the money, Pau Torres possibly, or Konsa. But his fixtures, as we've talked about, look pretty decent, especially from a defensive point of view. And Villa just flying at the moment. And then a player that possibly no one would have thought of or was talking about 2 weeks ago. Now he scores, gets 4 returns in one game. Ollie Watkins. Again, we look at the fixtures. He's absolutely nailed up front. He's lost penalties, but nonetheless, he's providing goals and scoring them. And his underlying stats look great, really boosted by that weekend fixture where I think his XGI was something like 1.5. So he overextended himself in that game. But yeah, he looks great. The only problem is bringing him in on a wild card now or later on is if you want Son, if you want Haaland and you want Salah, how do you afford to bring him in, especially with Trippier playing so well as well? So there are compromises that you're going to have. For game week 10, I wouldn't possibly need the likes of Son and Maddison, so that allows me to bring Ollie Watkins in, and I think he's absolutely shoed in for my game week 10 wildcard. Mo Salah is another one, and one of the reasons why my wildcard was triggered initially for game week 9 was that he had Everton at home. I think I've kind of convinced myself that actually I don't think that's such a great fixture. Brighton away is a decent fixture, I think, especially from an attacking point of view. Brighton have conceded goal this season, so bringing Salah in, who's been so consistent, and look at that expected XGI as well, 1.29, absolutely phenomenal. Even without penalties, it's impressive. So 7 returns in 7 games. Fixtures look brilliant from game 9 onwards. Maybe I'll convince myself. Brighton's definitely a game you could target and bring him in for. I'm not. They've been humbled a little bit, stung by the 6 goals against Villa. I'm expecting them at home to be a lot stiffer, and they're still a good side. Everton, I feel, it's a derby. Maybe I'm convincing myself. It's on paper, if they play Everton, it's a game on target. But because it's a derby, I'm shying away from it a little bit. And I've just set my heart on a game week 10 wildcard. I can't get him in any other sooner than that. So maybe I'm just going to be hiding behind a sofa for that Everton fixture. But if you wanted to bring him in now, I'd absolutely see nothing wrong with it. He's been brilliant all season, and the fixtures look good for him. We've alluded to before, Trippier, 2 brilliant game weeks for him, getting double-digit hauls, 4 assists in the last 2 games. XGI looks good. Again, I think if I had the money to go from Botman to Trippier, I would. If I was building a wildcard, yes, I'd want him in. It's just how do you fit him in with the money? West Ham away is not necessarily a game I'll be desperate to bring him in for, but Palace and Wolves look good. For my wildcard, we'll be trying to fit him in, but I don't think I'll be doubling up on Newcastle defence when it comes to game week 10. But yeah, Trippier has been absolutely fantastic lately. One player that I've also got to say will be definitely West Ham's fixtures just turn so nicely in game weeks 9 and 10. Villa away, not easy. Newcastle at home, not easy either. But Jarrod Bowen, 100% nailed in that side at the moment. 90 minutes every week. XGI looks good. He absolutely is a player that I want to bring in. Could bring him in now if you've got nothing else to do. Just preparing for those longer term fixtures. There's not many other players in that West Ham side that I would target. I would certainly prefer Bowen over JWP just for the minutes and the goal threat. The last player that I'm going to go through, I just don't know if I don't know, maybe I'm going bonkers here. Abdoulaye Doucouré. If I just used the stats and took their names off of whose stats they were, and you offered me a good fixture, 2 good fixtures last week, 5.5, excellent XGI, When I source him, he comes up as one of the best midfielders. He's getting key passes in. I also like the fact that he's getting a number of shots in as well. So Doucouré just looks really good across the board, and he's playing further forward this season for Everton. So maybe I need to just get my head out of that space where I think of him as more of a holding midfielder. For me, it may be just a 1 week punt. The side looks good for game week 9, so I would just literally be benching him. Did consider him last week when he had Luton at home, then Bournemouth at home. 5.5. The underlying stats, like I say, look good. And he did get an assist. He came off early. It's not flagged. But that could definitely be an option for me, Abdoulaye Doucouré. Like I said, the fixtures after that don't look great. At Liverpool away, I'm not going to want him. West Ham away looks hard. Brighton at home, yes, can score. But just for Bournemouth at home as a 1 week punt, I am considering it. If I was just purely driven by the stats, then he would have to pretty much come in. And as a cheap midfielder as well, it's tempting. I think otherwise I would have gone for Gordon. But 5.5, same old price bracket. Gordon unsuspended. Doucouré, could he? I don't know, it just feels absolutely wrong, but the underlying stats are there and they look good. So do I just entirely trust them or not? I'm not sure, but he is on my watch list as just a 1 week punt. That's it for this one then, guys. Let me know in the comments below what you think of the players that I've looked at. Are you wildcarding this week, or are you holding off for the next few weeks? And who are you thinking of bringing in this week? In the meantime, we'll come back at you with a team selection video before the deadline. So good luck, and I shall speak to you soon.